Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into one of the most brutal, visceral stories ever told. Forget the sanitized, watered-down myths you might have heard growing up. We are looking at an ancient epic of monstrous trials, divine wrath, and just pure, gritty survival. We're talking about Homer's Odyssey. So, let's get right into it. Just listen to these words. Thunder, fire, death. I remember. A wife, a son, home. Man, that hooks you right away, doesn't it? Because it sets the actual stakes. This isn't just some fantasy story about fighting magical creatures across the Mediterranean. It's a desperate fight to reclaim a stolen life. A king, completely stripped of his army and his glory, trying to pull himself out of hell just to get back to his family. Part 1. Nostos, the journey home. So this whole epic psychological battle, it's completely anchored by this one incredibly powerful ancient Greek word, nostos. It literally just means the journey home. You probably recognize it, right? It's the exact root of our modern word, nostalgia. For Odysseus, home wasn't just a physical building back in Ithaca. It was a desperate hope to return to a very specific point in space and time, back to the peace he left behind 2 decades ago. And, this perfectly captures the cultural mindset back then. For a Greek warrior, you basically had 2 paths. On one hand, you've got Achilles, the ultimate hero of the Trojan War, chasing Kleos, or eternal war glory. Achilles actually chose to die young just so his name would live forever. But Odysseus, he survived the war. His entire pursuit was Nostos. He absolutely did not want to be a dead legend. He just wanted to see his wife and son again.
Part 2. A kingdom under siege.
Now, while Odysseus is out there quite literally going through hell to get back, his home is completely falling apart. 108. I really want that number to sink in for a second. 108. While Odysseus is missing and basically presumed dead for 10 years after the Trojan War, 108 treacherous, greedy nobles have invaded his palace. They are literally eating the king's food, drinking his wine, and demanding his grieving wife's hand in marriage just so they can steal the throne. So how on earth does his family survive this absolute nightmare? Well, Queen Penelope, for starters, is a total genius. She tells these guys, hey, I'll pick a husband, but only after I finish weaving a burial shroud for my father-in-law. And every single day she weaves it, and every night, in secret, she unravels the whole thing. She actually buys them 3 whole years with this trick. Meanwhile, her son Telemachus, who was just a baby when Odysseus left, is now 20 years old. He's furious watching his father's legacy be devoured, but he is vastly outnumbered. Thankfully, Athena, the goddess of wisdom, steps in to guide the young prince and petitions Zeus to finally bring Odysseus home. Because it all boils down to this. Ithaca's a kingdom waiting for a king. Without Odysseus, the whole island is teetering on the edge of total collapse. I mean, these nobles are literally plotting to assassinate young Telemachus. Bloodshed is inevitable at this point. It's a powder keg, just waiting for a spark. Part 3. Surviving Gods and Monsters. So, where is the king during all this? Well, if we speed through the nightmarish mythological trials that kept him away, the sheer scale of his absence is just agonizing. 10 years fighting the Trojan War. Then the journey home begins, but it goes terribly, terribly wrong. He spends a year trapped by the sorceress, Circe, who literally turns his crew into pigs. Then an incredible 7 years held hostage on an island by the nymph Calypso. She wants him to stay with her forever, even offering her immortality, but he refuses. He wants his mortal wife. Add all that up, and it is a 20-year agonizing geographical wandering before he ever steps foot in Ithaca again. And surviving all that, it took absolute tactical genius. Just think about his run-in with the Cyclops, Polyphemus. The guy traps him in a cave and literally starts eating his men raw. But Odysseus doesn't just charge at him, he outsmarts him. First, he gets the giant incredibly drunk on wildly potent, undiluted wine. Second, he tells the giant his name is Nobody. Third, when the giant passes out, they blind him with a burning olive branch. So when the other Cyclopes run over and ask who's hurting him, Polyphemus yells, "Nobody is hurting me." So they leave. Finally, they escape by strapping themselves under the bellies of the giant's sheep. I mean, it is brilliant, dark humor, and just pure survival instinct. Now, to really get why all this chaotic stuff is happening, we have to talk about Xenia. It's this ancient Greek secret law of hospitality. Basically, if a stranger shows up at your door, you are obligated to respect, feed, and protect them. Abusing this law, like the Cyclops eating his guests, or the suitors back in Ithaca invading a home and stealing its wealth, is a massive offense to the gods. It absolutely justifies severe divine punishment.
But here's the kicker. It wasn't just the monsters that doomed Odysseus's return journey. It was his own crew. We're talking fatal human flaws here. Greed, disobedience, like when the King of the Winds gives Odysseus a bag packed with storm winds to guarantee a safe trip. While Odysseus is sleeping, his crew, blinded by greed, thinks it's hidden gold. They open it, and the storms blow them all the way back, literally right as they could see the fires of Ithaca. Later on, completely ignoring strict warnings, his starving men slaughter the sacred cattle of the sun god. The consequence for that? Zeus destroys their very last ship with a thunderbolt. His entire crew perishes.
Which brings us to this incredibly bold, frankly chilling statement. Then I defy the gods. Look, Odysseus loses all his ships. He loses every single one of his men. He washes up on the shores of his homeland, 20 years older, completely alone, and disguised as an old beggar by Athena, so he isn't immediately assassinated on sight. His unstoppable resolve at this point is terrifying.
Part 4. Vengeance of the King.
All right, we're leaving the mythical wandering behind us now, because this final act, it plays out like a tense, incredibly bloody revenge thriller. When the disguised king finally approaches his own palace, we get one of the most heartbreaking moments in all of literature. After 20 long years, not a single human recognizes him through his magical disguise. But, lying on a pile of refuse outside the gates, is Argos, the hunting pup he trained 2 decades ago. Argos is old, sick, and totally neglected. But the second he catches his master's scent, he lifts his head, wags his tail, and peacefully passes away. Seeing the absolute cruelty his loyal dog suffered, that ignites a cold, calculated fury inside Odysseus. So I have to ask you, how exactly does a lone, disguised beggar take down 108 armed, ruthless nobles in the prime of their lives? Well, it requires a flawless trap. And Queen Penelope, completely unknowingly, sets the perfect stage. She announces an impossible challenge to the suitors. She says she'll marry the man who can string Odysseus's ridiculously heavy, rigid warbow, and then fire a single arrow cleanly through the small holes of 12 axe heads lined up in a row. So one by one, these 108 arrogant suitors step up, and one by one, they can't even bend the wood to string the bow, let alone fire it. Then the old beggar steps up. Of course, the suitors mock him, they're laughing. But Odysseus takes the bow, and without even bothering to stand up, he just effortlessly strings it. And at that exact second, Zeus sends a massive crack of thunder echoing across the sky. The beggar fires the arrow perfectly through all 12 axes. He looks over at his son, Telemachus. The time for hiding is over. Like the quote says, he is bringing vengeance. Bringing it all. The trap is officially sprung. Telemachus and a few loyal servants had already secretly chained the doors of the Great Hall shut. They'd taken all the shields and spears off the walls. So now, these 108 arrogant suitors are locked in a room, completely unarmed, with literally the deadliest warrior of the ancient world. Odysseus' very next arrow pierces the throat of the suitor's leader, right as the guy is taking a sip of the king's wine. And from there, absolute bloody carnage ensues. With Athena's help, Odysseus and Telemachus purge the palace. Not a single suitor survives. Part 5. The Final Reunion. But true victory for Odysseus was always going to require brains, not just brawn. He's got his palace back, sure, but he still has to win back his wife. And Penelope, she is cautious. I mean, the gods play tricks, right? So she tests this guy who's claiming to be her husband by casually ordering her servant to move their heavy marital bed out into the hall for him. Odysseus immediately flares up in anger. He says that's impossible. He built that bedroom around a living olive tree. He carved the bedpost directly from the trunk, rooted deep into the earth itself. Only the true Odysseus would know that secret. Hearing that, Penelope bursts into tears, and finally embraces her husband after 20 long years. It is such a profound, incredibly hard-earned reunion. And it leaves us with this lingering, provocative thought to ponder. What actually drives the human spirit harder? Is it the pursuit of immortal, eternal glory out in the world, Or is it that desperate, bleeding ache for home? Homer's Odyssey makes a pretty powerful argument for the latter. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this gave you a completely new perspective on the true weight of this legendary epic.